In Ottawa, opposition parties have launched motions that could find government ministers in contempt of Parliament. They have to do with their refusal to release documents on the transfer of Afghan detainees. And Speaker of the House, Peter Milliken, is reviewing those motions right now. But the government maintains it has the right to hold on to the documents for security concerns. Constitutional law professor Errol Mendes says this has gone beyond the issue of detainees, now an issue of parliamentary supremacy. He joins us now from Ottawa. So, Errol Mendes, why do you say this is now a question of parliamentary supremacy? What exactly do you mean?
Well, Nancy, I think what's at stake here is the very foundation on why the Parliament of Canada exists, is to hold the executive to account. And this is the reason why it's far bigger than the detainee issue, because essentially what the government is saying is that we have the right to determine what Parliament can see to hold us to account. So you can see why Derek Lee and others are very concerned about this far, far more than just the detainee issue. What's really interesting is that during the government of Brian Mulroney, the parliamentary committees were allowed to see the most secretive, most highly sensitive documents with the Al Mashhad affair, for example, and in the review of CSIS. So there's some major concerns here as to what actually is going on. What are the real reasons why the government is actually refusing to hand over these documents?
I have to think that throughout the course of this debate and whatever Peter Milliken decides, precedent will be factored into this. Have government ministers ever been found to be in contempt of Parliament before?
Well, no. The last time a sitting member of the House of Commons was held in contempt of Parliament was Louis Riel. He didn't show up, and you know what happened to him.
Right.
And that's why this is so serious. And again, I think Canadians should understand this is far bigger than just the detainee issue for that reason.
So do we know what it would mean for a government or for ministers to be found to be in contempt of Parliament? What exactly would happen?
Well, it pushes the issue into the highest political stakes possible. If the Speaker, for example, rules that the privilege of the House of Commons has been breached, then there's the potential for this motion of contempt of Parliament. What that does is to basically bring the three ministers who have been mentioned in the NDP motion, Nicholson, Cannon and McKay,
right,
potentially bringing them into the equivalent of the dock of Parliament, the equivalent of a criminal court, and basically demanding why they are refusing to obey the orders of the House of Commons. That's very, very serious and could eventually end up into the court of public opinion, where Canadians have to decide who's right and who's wrong.
You talk about the court of public opinion. I have a feeling that one way or the other this could well wind up in court. Whatever Peter Milliken decides here, it's not likely to be the last word, is it? And the Harper government already serving notice that should they need to take this and challenge whatever the ruling is by the House Speaker, they will do so. So is it inevitable that this will just wind up in court?
No, actually I think under the Act of Parliament, Section 5 of that Act basically says this is not the jurisdiction of the courts. If the core issue here is holding the executive to account, the courts have no jurisdiction. In fact, the Supreme Court of Canada on 2 occasions have said if the core issue is holding the government to account, this is the purview of the House of Commons. And that's why this is ratcheting up into the highest political stakes, where it's up to the House of Commons to decide if a violation has been done, and then ultimately, as I said, the Court of Public Opinion, not the Supreme Court of Canada, but Canadians.
Yeah, I'm still trying to process this. It sounds like this whole deliberation on the contempt issue, is this Canada's parliamentary version of impeachment?
In a way, yes. In a way, it's essentially saying to the people of Canada, the executive is refusing to be held to account. They are basically trying to put themselves above Parliament, which is the reason why Parliament was created. It's the reason why the British Parliament was created. And you know, as happened in the 17th century,
right,
when King Charles basically said, I refuse to observe the supremacy of Parliament, you know what happened there?
Yeah,
so
it didn't
this
end
is
well.
Yeah, it didn't end well at all.
Okay, well, it sounds like there's lots at stake here and probably much more to be debated, and we'll track it all. Errol Mendes, good to talk to you. Thanks for shedding light on this.
You're very welcome, Nancy.